Good morning. I hope I am audible in this important class of carcinoma breast. This is an important topic for theory as well as clinical examinations, and also we have many questions from this very same topic in the entrance exam, and in future also many of you who will go to the clinical sites will see the patients very frequently, and many questions will arise regarding carcinoma breast. I have tried to change the pattern of presentation, and I have highlighted certain points which will be important MCQ. Either they have been asked or you might get a question on them. Let's start from anatomy. I will not go into detail, but you all know that the breast has a large part of adipose or fatty tissue with duct and lobules. The ducts converge into lactiferous ducts, then they open at nipple. Important oncological aspect is that the breast has rich blood supply and very rich lymphatic drainage. As you can see, axillary nodes and intramammary nodes, internal mammary nodes, they send a lot of lymphatics, and so tumor has very high probability of nodal metastasis much before the systemic vascular metastasis. Let's go to the epidemiology. It is the most common form of cancer among women, but in India some cancer registries say that it is common in urban women. In rural females, still cervix is number one, but worldwide if we see, it is the commonest form of cancer and second most common cause of cancer related mortality. First is lung. Worldwide, or especially in high risk countries, 1 out of 8 women, that is 12% probability of a woman having breast cancer in the lifetime. In India, the chances are 8 out of 100, and in some places it is as high as 10 to 12 out of 100. 1/3 of women with breast cancer die from the disease. Incidence rates are highest in North America, Australia and Western Europe, intermediate in South America, Caribbean, and lowest in China, Japan and India. But in urban India, the rate is increasing. Over the years, there has been decline in the cancer related mortality, both because of the early detection and more effective treatment modalities. As far as the risk factor is concerned, most important risk factor is sex. There is high female to male ratio of 122:1. I still remember during my MBBS final year, when I said this point, I had to argue with my lecturer for nearly 2 to 5 minutes that sex is the most important risk factor for breast cancer. Another important one is age. Incidence increases with age. More than 80% occur in women over 50 years, and it is very uncommon before 25 years of age. Now here are some points which have been asked many times as an MCQ. Hormonal factor, which is called as menstruating age of a female, which means menopause minus menarche minus secondary amenorrhea due to pregnancy and lactation. Level of estrogen increases the risk, like early menarche, late menopause, nulliparity, late age of first childbirth, and very important is estrogen only hormone replacement therapy. Question is usually asked, early age of first childbirth confers protection against breast cancer. Other risk factors are obesity and certain environmental factors like high fat intake, excessive alcohol and ionizing radiation. Family history is important in 8 to 10% of breast cancer patients, which is because of the inherited genetic predisposition. A woman whose mother or sister, that is first degree relative, has had the breast cancer is at relative risk of 2 to 3 times compared to other women. The risk is much more if the index case, that is the patient, is of younger age. At least 2 genes which are predisposed to breast cancer are BRCA1 and BRCA2. These both are tumor suppressor gene and they also predispose to ovarian cancer. Another important question is, you just remember the word Gale model and Claus model. The question asked is, Gale model predicts the risk of, in option you have to tick breast cancer. Gale model takes into account number of relatives, degree of relatives with the breast cancer, previous breast surgery for benign breast diseases. In benign breast disease, normally we encounter fibroadenosis and fibroadenoma which have no relation with breast cancer, but certain type of diseases like hyperplasia increase the risk. Among hyperplasia, most significant association is seen with atypical ductal hyperplasia. Atypical lobular hyperplasia is not having direct correlation with the breast cancer. History of other cancer, especially ovarian or endometrial cancer. Last point which I have written, epithelioid fibroadenoma. I have never found this term in any of my textbook, but in some of the NEET questions this has been asked and this has been blamed as a variant of fibroadenoma which increases the risk of breast cancer. You have to remember atypical ductal hyperplasia, which is very important. So in short, risk factor can be hormonal, environmental, familial or benign breast diseases or other cancers. Etiology: most likely there is a combination of risk factor which is genetic or hormonal or environmental. If we broadly classify etiologically the breast cancer, there can be sporadic or familial. Sporadic is because of overexposure to estrogen, which I said, that is prolonged menstruating age. The reason is growth of breast tissue is highly sensitive to estrogen. The more the woman is exposed over lifetime, higher is the risk. Hormone exposure increases the number of potential target cells by stimulating breast growth. So estrogen stimulates the breast growth. Also, it drives proliferative cycle, and we all know whenever there is cell division, there is the multiplication of DNA. There is the possibility of DNA damage which can give rise to malignancy. Apart from sporadic, we have hereditary breast cancer. BRCA1 and BRCA2, they together make more than 50%, 30 to 50 is wrong, more than 50% of hereditary breast ovarian cancer or both in family. Important point is 90% BRCA patient develop breast cancer, while 60% of them develop ovarian cancer. In some of the guides, the option or the answer is wrong which states that 60% BRCA patient have breast cancer. This is wrong. The incidence of breast cancer is in BRCA1 is as high as 90% lifetime risk. Also, as I have told, they are tumor suppressor gene and the mutation can be passed down by either mother or father. That means male can also be the carrier of the mutation. Other defective genes are P53, CHEK2, P10, PJ syndrome like LKB1 and ataxia telangiectasia. ATM gene I have marked in red because among all the given options, it has the least propensity to cause breast cancer. But if you have option other than these, then might be that be the answer. But in some questions which I have seen, ATM was the answer because other genes above which I have written above ATM have more propensity to cause breast cancer. Histology: there is a Foot and Stewart classification which broadly divides breast cancer into lobular and ductal. Lobular is 15%, ductal is 85%. or slightly less. Then there are some unusual like sarcomas or metaplastic tumors which are 1 to 2%. You have to note, among lobular, half is LCIS, that is carcinoma in situ, and half is invasive. In spite of the fact that it is half of the lobular are invasive tumors, they make up less than 10%, like 9% of all invasive. So to differentiate, if we talk only about the invasive cancer, as you can see in red, 85% of all invasive tumors are invasive ductal carcinoma, NOS. NOS is no otherwise specific type or simple type. If we talk about the ductal cancers, they can be DCIS or invasive cancers. To make the things easy, you can just remember invasive can be NOS, like no otherwise specific, and special types. Special types can be serous medullary mucinous, don't remember them, just remember a single word. Almost apart from metaplastic, all the special types are having better prognosis. Survival is more for special type, survival is less for invasive IDC NOS type. In histology, gross examination, there is a characterize the duct. I am talking about IDC because IDC is commonest. So it is characterized by hard to firm mass which produces grating sound while cutting because of the small chalky microcalcification in the tumor. Well differentiated tumors show prominent tubule and small nuclei. Moderately differentiated cancer show tubules and some infiltrating cells, while poorly differentiated cancer show ragged nests or solid sheet of cells with enlarged large nucleus. This is true for almost every cancer. Now time for another MCQ. Lobular carcinoma has characteristic histological growth pattern with single file infiltration or India file infiltration of stroma. It is compared with the file of soldier who walk in a single line, but this is not for IDC, not for the ductal cancer, it is for the lobular cancer. You have to keep it in mind. Something about the genetics. There are some genes which are expressed in certain percentage of breast cancer cells. One of them is HER2/neu. HER2 is human epidermal growth factor receptor 2, HER2, which is a member of ERBB family. That is why it is also called as ERBB2, ERBB2. It is a surface bound receptor tyrosine kinase. This is an MCQ. It is a receptor tyrosine kinase involved in signal transduction pathway for growth and differentiation. 1/3 breast cancer patients worldwide show HER2/neu amplification. In India, data is slightly more. Unfortunately, overexpression of the HER2 receptor is associated with poor prognosis and increased chance of disease recurrence. Another receptor which are found are estrogen and progesterone, estrogen being an important feature. 75% breast tumors are estrogen dependent. The tumors which do not rely on estrogen are called estrogen independent. Dependent tumors predict the presence of receptors. As the name suggests, it predicts the estrogen receptors which are on the nucleus, which is detected by immunohistochemical staining. Another important word for you all. How to detect estrogen receptor? It is detected by immunohistochemical staining, IHC. The ER positive tumors are dependent while ER negative tumors are estrogen independent, as you can see in the diagram. Here you can see the brown, which is IHC staining for estrogen. Here you have estrogen independent tumors. Based on estrogen and progesterone and HER2, there is a molecular subtyping. There are molecular 5 subtypes of breast cancer: luminal A, luminal B. Luminal B is divided into 2. Then there is HER2 overexpression and triple negative. You just remember TNBC, triple negative breast cancer, where ER is absent, PR is absent, and HER2 is also absent. This is the worst possible breast cancer. Before going to the invasive malignancy, let us talk about carcinoma in situ. As you can see in the diagram, there are some abnormal cells in the normal duct, but they are confounded by the basement membrane. So the neoplastic proliferation is limited to the duct and lobule, and it is restricted by the basement membrane, that is, the cells do not cross the basement membrane. Ductal carcinoma in situ, DCIS. Most DCIS are incidentally detected by the microcalcification on mammography. Microcalcification in mammography can be due to the tumor or because of the DCIS. If we read the sentence from the other end, mammography is the most sensitive tool to detect DCIS. It is an MCQ. Rarely palpable mass, DCIS can be present, like when the DCIS grows in the vast area, it spreads through duct and lobule and becomes extensive, then it can also present as a palpable mass or nipple discharge. Another important term is VNPI, Van Nuy Prognostic Index. Van Nuy Prognostic Index, VNPI, is an attempt to determine the aggressiveness of DCIS. Like if you operate upon the patient or if you treat the patient of DCIS, the probability of disease recurrence or disease severity is assessed by an index of 5 to 7 parameters, which is called as VNPI, Van Nuy Prognostic Index. A small topic of Paget's disease of nipple. It is a rare manifestation of CA breast with the closest differential diagnosis of eczema of the nipple, because in Paget's also nipple gets excoriated. The difference is Paget's is unilateral eruption with pruritus or itching. The malignant cells extend from DCIS within the duct system and they reach up to the nipple skin, but they don't cross the basement membrane. So still they are in situ stage. The cells disrupt the tight squamous epithelial barrier. Extracellular fluid seeps out of the nipple, causing nipple discharge. This oozing causes scaly crust. Paget cells are detected by nipple biopsy or cytology of the fluid which comes out, the exudative fluid. Paget's disease are the hallmark or harbinger of the underlying DCIS, but in many patients, about 50%, we can have a palpable mass, which means inside the tumor has become invasive carcinoma. If it is non-palpable, it can be DCIS. The problem with Paget's is they are poorly differentiated, ER negative and HER2 positive. The prognosis depends on the underlying malignancy. Here is an example. You can see excoriation and reddish nipple areola complex. The nipple, you can see eczematous changes. Invasive lobular carcinoma, which is very less common, as I said, less than 10% or 8% of the total invasive tumor, but presentation is same. MCQ which has been asked is, it is most likely to be bilateral or multicentric, that means many lesions in the same breast. As I already told, hallmark is the cells are arranged in single file or India file pattern. You can also see signet ring cells. They can be graded into well differentiated, moderately differentiated or poorly differentiated. Another important point is there is a loss of E-cadherin. E-cadherin is a molecule which causes cell to cell adhesion. So when there is mutation of E-cadherin, the adhesion is lost. That's why the tumor metastasizes frequently to CSF and serosal surface. Now let us come to inflammatory cancer. It is a rare 1 to 3% of all the breast malignancies. It is called inflammatory because clinically it presents with edema, peau d'orange or peau d'orange, whatever you pronounce, skin redness, skin tethering. The cause is dermal lymphatic involvement. Many times we don't find a palpable mass. Instead, the whole breast turns into red and fiery looking. Typically, the skin over the lesion is warm and indurated. It may present with the features of cellulitis and it may be mistaken as mastitis. Diagnosis is confirmed by the biopsy of skin and subcutaneous tissue. The disease progresses rapidly and prognosis is very poor. Something about the disease spread, as you can see in this image. First there is carcinoma in situ, then the basement membrane breaks and the tumor escapes. Now the tumor is in the stroma and it can find lymph channels or vascular channels, thereby having the nodal or the vascular metastasis. Coming to the presentation, commonest presentation is painless lump or thickening in the breast. We can also find patients with nipple discharge, mostly bloody discharge. Patient can experience change in the size or contour of the breast. Patient can also experience change in the position or size of the nipple or areola with inversion. In inflammatory malignancies, patient can have redness of or pitting of skin over the breast. Patient can also have skin of orange feeling called as peau d'orange or peau d'orange. In clinical classes, I have always told you, you have to divide your history of presenting illness based on the presentation because of primary and presentation because of metastasis. If you apply the same principle here, you can see presentation due to primary can be because of, as I said, painless lump, nipple discharge, nipple restriction, peau d'orange, Paget's disease or inflammatory malignancy. Some patients have presentation because of metastatic disease, which means the primary tumor is very small or non-palpable. This is called as occult presentation, where patient can present with axillary mass or axillary lump, supraclavicular swelling, ascites, bony pain, hemoptysis. Nowadays, there is a third category of patients who are asymptomatic and they are discovered accidentally during screening program, which I will deal later. This is an important terminology. You have to remember the word triple assessment in your theory, in your clinics. Whenever anybody asks, how will you proceed further or how will you diagnose the breast cancer, just jump in and say the word triple assessment. It's an MCQ also. Triple assessment includes three modalities. One is examination, second is imaging, third is pathology. Examination will be examination or history taking and examination by the clinician. Imaging can be sonography or mammography or sonomammography. Pathology can be FNAC or FNAB, that is core biopsy, fine needle aspiration cytology, FNAC or core biopsy. Important point, triple assessment, the confidence diagnosis after triple assessment is 95 to 99%. Why diagnosis is important? Because early detection significantly reduces the risk of death. What to do for the early diagnosis and screening? Between the age of 20 to 50, patient should perform self-examination once every month and should be examined by the health professional every 2 years. If you are more than 50 years of age, you have to be examined annually. Breast self-examination or BSE, it is done once a month, 2 to 3 days after the menstrual cycle. Examination is done of the breast and the armpit with the raised arm, preferably in front of mirror. We have to use finger pads with oil or shower gel. First we have to do an up and down movement, then we have to go like wedges, and then a circular movement. Examination is done up to the armpit area. Breast is examined in the mirror to see for the dimpling of the skin or any lump or any change in the size or color of the nipple or areola. So in triple assessment, first thing was examination. Self-examination is not a part of triple assessment, but I have covered it for the sake of completion and for its importance. After examination comes imaging. Breast sonography like ultrasound is superior in for younger age or for dense breast, while mammography is superior in loose fatty breast or elderly patient. In MCQ is mammography is reported using BI-RADS system developed by American College of Radiology. BI-RADS, the abbreviation, stands for Breast Imaging Reporting and Data System. The suspicion lesion in BI-RADS have pleomorphic heterogeneous mass with speculated margin. You remember speculated margin. And there are tentaculations. You can have microcalcification or architectural distortion. This is an important slide. In Viva also you have to remember all these things. There can be asymmetrical thickening of the breast tissue. I have purposefully mentioned next point, which is popcorn. I am sorry if it is not visible. It is popcorn or macrocalcification. Macrocalcification or popcorn calcification is seen in benign disease fibroadenoma. It is not a feature of malignancy. Other imaging modalities can be scintillatomography or Doppler ultrasound. Breast MRI is very sensitive modality and it is the imaging of choice for high risk female. This is an MCQ, you have to remember. In patient who have genetic BRCA mutation or Ashkenazi Jews or very strong family history, you can go for breast MRI instead of mammography. Another MCQ, what is the age for screening mammography? Some people say 35, some people say 45 or 50, but consensus mainly is in favor of 40 years. Frequency of mammography is annual. Another imaging is bone scan. You have to remember, bone scan uses 99M technician labeled diphosphonate. You can see the imaging A and B, anterior and posterior. You can see the bony metastasis. See all the vertebra having uptake, few ribs are having uptake. Here even the skull is having uptake and the pelvic bone is having uptake. So this here you can see some spots, dark spots or black spots. These are the accumulated diphosphonates at the site of bony metastasis. PET scan, it stands for positron emission tomography. It uses radioactive substance or radioactive sugar. Sugar is glucose. It uses fluorine, radioactive fluorine labeled deoxyglucose. FDG is fluorodeoxyglucose. Remember this word. The role of PET scan is to determine the spread of the cancer to the lymph node, spread of the cancer to other parts of body, and it is very useful to assess the response to treatment. You can see this is normal physiological uptake of FDG in heart, kidney and bladder, and here you can see primary breast tumor, ipsilateral node, contralateral node, neck node and mediastinal nodes. So imaging completes here with the involvement of bone scan and PET scan. Next is biopsy. There are many types of biopsies: FNAC, excisional biopsy, incisional biopsy, core biopsy or radio guided biopsy. Radio guided biopsy is done for the occult lumps which are not palpable or which are detected during the screening. But if it is asked about the single option which you have to choose, a definitive diagnostic option, it should be core biopsy. Many places they have given FNAC, which in my opinion is a wrong choice. Core biopsy has high specificity, greater sensitivity. So whenever available, core biopsy should be the preferential modality for histopathological detection of breast cancer. Now comes the staging. Tumor size less than 2 cm is T1, 2 to 5 is T2, more than 5 is T3, and involvement of chest wall or skin, that is Podorange nipple retraction or fixity to the chest wall, is T4. N0 no node, N1 ipsilateral single mobile node, N2 ipsilateral multiple fixed node, N3 metastatic node. Same way M0 M1. This slide has a very important clinical implication where you can see the 5-year survival of stage 1 is 87%, while stage 3 has dropped to roughly 45%. You can see increase in size or increase in nodal involvement significantly reduces the prognosis. So if you want to cure any patient, the key is to diagnose early, to spread the awareness. This slide is close to my heart. It has nothing much to do at MBBS level for the theory or the practical, but I want to drill deep into the gray matter of everybody who is listening or everybody who is sleeping also, that the key to success for CA breast management is early diagnosis to give the benefit of survival advantage to the patient. As I said, major prognostication factor is T, N and M, that is size, node and metastasis, type, that is invasive versus in situ, age of the patient and inflammatory cancer. There are many minor prognostication like histological subtype of IDS, ILS, grading, ERPR, HER2/neu, lymphovascular invasion, that is LVI, proliferative rate, that is Ki67, DNA content and response to the therapy, molecular and gene expression markers. Treatment options. For the treatment of cancer, we have this broadly 5 type of treatment options. Thankfully, each of them is applicable in breast cancer. There is the role of surgery, role of radiotherapy, chemotherapy, hormone therapy and targeted therapy. Surgery, we can have lumpectomy, wide excision, quadrantectomy is not used nowadays, or we can have mastectomy. This surgery can be clubbed with reconstruction. Reconstruction can be with the help of latissimus dorsi muscle. It can be with the silicone expanders. It can be with the free flap of the transverse abdominis, like we can have the fat and the muscle from the abdomen, the muscle from the back, or we can have some silicone prosthesis. Any kind of breast surgery can be clubbed with the reconstruction surgery. Again, some tutorials. Radical mastectomy was initially propagated by Halsted, called as Halsted's mastectomy. Modified, we have many variants: Auchincloss, Scanlon and Patties. In our time they used to ask a lot of questions. Nowadays they have gone beyond it. Just remember, in Patties mastectomy we preserve pectoralis major muscle. Next surgical option is, as I said, breast conservative surgery, which includes lumpectomy. Lumpectomy is combined with sentinel lymph node biopsy or axillary dissection. SLNB, sentinel node biopsy, has popped up many times in the MCQs. The question is, sentinel node is the first draining node from the tumor. Sentinel node biopsy is done when there is no palpable lymph node. Another important question point regarding axillary dissection is, like, if you are not doing SLNB, if you are doing axillary dissection, it is recommended that minimum of 10 lymph nodes should be removed and examined to maximize the survival of the breast cancer patient. For sentinel lymph node biopsy, remember few words. As you can see in the photograph, you have to inject either a radioactive substance or a blue dye around the tumor or around the nipple areola. The radioactive substance most commonly used is technetium labeled sulfur colloid. The dye which is commonly used worldwide is isosulfan blue, very costly. So in India we use methylene blue, less than 2 rupee per patient. We have to remove all blue and all hot nodes. Hot node are the nodes which appear hot in this is the probe which detects the radioactivity, called as gamma camera or gamma probe. So the nodes which are hot or which are blue, everything has to be taken out. This is the main idea behind sentinel node biopsy. If they are positive, we have to do complete axillary clearance. If they are negative, we can avoid axillary clearance. SLNB is done in cases where lymph node is not palpable. After surgery comes the chemotherapy. It can be given in 3 different settings. Neoadjuvant before surgery. Before surgery you can give it when you plan breast conservative surgery. It is done to reduce the size of the tumor. Or neoadjuvant therapy is given in advanced breast cancer to make them operable. Adjuvant is the chemotherapy given after surgery when tumor is 1 centimeter or more. Palliative chemotherapy is done to make the patient's life easy in metastatic setting. Agents most commonly used are cyclophosphamide, which is an alkylating agent, epirubicin or doxorubicin, which are anthracyclines, taxanes, which are microtubule stabilizers, which are paclitaxel and docetaxel. Then you have pyrimidine analog, 5-fluorouracil and capecitabine. There are many more agents like gemcitabine and all, but at your level it is more than enough if you remember any or all of these: cyclophosphamide, alkylating agent, anthracyclines, microtubule stabilizers and pyrimidine analogs. Radiotherapy indication is tumor size more than 5, that is T3, node positive. Most important point, you remember, every patient who has undergone surgery, conservative surgery, has to undergo radiotherapy, positive margin or close margin. Radiotherapy can also be considered in patients who are young, who have high grade tumor, triple negative cancer or inadequate nodal dissection, that is less than 10 nodes harvested. Some ill effects of radiation like fatigue, breast pain, swollen lymph, change in skin color, armpit hair loss. Hormone therapy, it is done only for the tumors who are ER/PR positive. For estrogen independent or estrogen deprived tumor, hormone therapy has no role. There are mainly 3 classes of drugs. First is selective estrogen receptor modifiers. They are called selective because they block estrogen receptor within the breast, while they have partial agonistic effect elsewhere. Example is tamoxifen. You can have aromatase inhibitor. You know enzyme aromatase is very important in estrogen biosynthesis. So aromatase inhibitor like anastrozole and letrozole, they inhibit estrogen synthesis. Then you have fulvestrant, which is direct estrogen antagonist. Last class of drugs are targeted therapy. Long list, just remember what I have written in red. Trastuzumab is monoclonal humanized antibody against HER2 or ERBB2, which is tyrosine kinase. Ciclibs, remember, palbociclib, ribociclib, they are CDK inhibitor. CDK is cluster cyclin dependent kinase. Herceptin was tyrosine dependent kinase. CDK is cyclin dependent kinase. Paribs, olaparib, talazoparib, they are PARP inhibitor, polyadipase ribosome polymerase inhibitor. These are the in things now, ciclibs and the paribs. So you might get a question: Ciclibs act on CDK inhibitor and Paribs act on PARP inhibitors. With this, I come to an end of the topic. Anybody of you having any doubt can WhatsApp me or mail me in person. I hope the class was informative. Thank you.